Hello, good morning. Can you hear me in the back? All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Hunter Carr, and I have the privilege of serving as the chairman of the Tyler Area Chamber Energy Summit Committee and putting on this great event. So thank you all for coming. And on behalf of the Chamber, just thank you for joining us on our 15th annual event. This event continues to be one of the key forums in East Texas for bringing together industry leaders, policymakers, and a broader business community to stay informed on the issues shaping energy in our state. Energy is foundational to everything we do in Texas, supporting jobs, powering our economy, and enabling growth across every sector. And East Texas continues to play a meaningful role in that story. I'd first off like to recognize our sponsors. Without them, we could not put on this event. So if y'all could save your applause to the end, I'll honor these sponsors. Special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Delek US, our refinery here in Tyler. Platinum sponsors are McGriff, Encore, Mewburn Oil Company, and the Genicove Group. Gold sponsors are Fair Oil, GMP, Jasper, and the Texas Oil and Gas Association. And silver sponsors, the Argent Mineral Management, the Centerpoint Energy, Ike Mapes, Henry and Peters, Holiday Inn and Conference Center, IPM, Origin Bank, Prime Controls, Southside Bank, Texas Bank and Trust, TXU Energy, and the University of Texas at Tyler. Please join me in welcoming and thanking them for this. I'd also like to recognize our elected officials that are in the room with us and representatives. So if you would, please stand when I call your name, and we'll all give you a round of applause as well. From the 12th Court of Appeals, Chief Justice James Wortham. From the U.S. Senator John Cornyn's office, Sarah Butler. U.S. Congressman Nathaniel Moran's office, Chelsea Cohen. State Senator Brian Hughes' office, Reese DeWoody. State Representatives Cody Harris and Daniel Alders. City of Tyler Mayor Don Warren and City Council members. And our Railroad Commissioners Wayne Christian and Chairman Jim Wright. Let's thank them all for coming. Thank you. Now I'd like to direct your attention to the screen. We'll be showing a video of Delek for part of their support. Thank you.
Delek US is an American company, powering the work that keeps us moving. Because in rural America, fuel isn't just a product, it's a lifeline. It's how a nurse gets to an early shift, how a parent gets their kid to school, and how families and businesses stay connected to the people and places that matter most. That's what we support. Every day, our refineries run about 300,000 barrels of American-produced crude oil, turning it into the refined products families and businesses count on. Transported across 15 states with a focus on supporting the rural communities that keep America running. Our refineries are more than industrial sites. They're regional anchors built to serve the communities around them. From being the sole provider of critical fuels in key markets like Tyler, Texas and El Dorado, Arkansas, to producing low-sulfur products in Big Spring, Texas and Krotz Springs, Louisiana that meet today's clean fuel standards, we help ensure reliable supply where it's needed most. Delek supports roughly 2,000 U.S.-based jobs for people who live in these communities, raise families, and build their future. Good jobs, steady work, real impact. Over the past decade, Delek has invested $2.7 billion in operations, strengthening rural facilities and putting American dollars to work in American communities. Giving back is at the heart of who we are. Our employees support stewardship, volunteering, and meaningful work that strengthens the places we call home. Delek US is an American investment, American jobs and American energy, powering rural communities so people can get to work, visit family, and keep moving forward.
The Delek refinery is a large reason why our gas prices are some of the best in the state, along with just being in a great state for oil and gas production. So it's a great privilege to have them here in town. Up next, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Chairman Jim Wright, and he's also going to give the invocation for the meal. It is my honor to introduce him. He serves as on the Texas Railroad Commission, overseeing one of the most important industries in Texas. I've had the opportunity to spend time with Chairman Wright, and what stands out is his practical, real-world understanding of this business. He brings a grounded approach that supports both strong energy development and workable regulation. As many of you know, he is currently in a runoff election, and while I respect anyone willing to serve, based on my experience, I believe Chairman Wright is doing a strong job for our industry in our state. I'm glad he's in this role, and I hope he remains to be there with our support. So if you would, please give me a warm welcome for Chairman Jim Wright.
Good morning, everyone. You don't know how much of it is of an honor for me to be here today and be able to tell you a little about who I am and what we do in Texas to make Texas what it is today. I don't know if Tyler is really considered deep East Texas or not, but I do know this: anytime I see a tree that's over 10 foot tall, I consider I'm in East Texas. So I had saw one of my fellow commissioners here today, Wayne Christian, which I think many of you know. And I can tell you, part of the success at the Railroad Commission of Texas, since it is made up of 3 commissioners that are elected, is making sure that you have commissioners that work together. And I think you've seen what that has been over the past 5 years, because I can say with a lot of pride that the 3 of us have been working closely together to make things what we have done in Texas today. So, you know, when it comes to Texas energy, and especially the Texas oil and gas industry, you know, there's a whole lot to talk about and a lot to be thankful for. Texas' God-given natural resources not only serve to benefit our local communities, our state, and our nation, they play a pivotal role in the global energy markets and provide the fuel for our friends and our allies across the globe. Texas energy is the foundation of U.S. energy independence. Texas produces over 43% of U.S. oil. If we were our own nation, we'd be ranked 4th in the world behind the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Russia. 29% of U.S. natural gas is generated right here in Texas. 500,000 miles of pipeline run through our state that are interstate pipelines. The U.S. is the largest LNG exporter in the world. In the next year or so, Texas will lead the U.S. in LNG export capacity. The industry paid a record $27 billion in severance taxes in 2025. That's roughly $74 million a day that Texas receives out of our oil and gas industry. The industry directly employs almost 500,000 Texans, which has an indirect economic benefit which equates to some 1.4 million additional jobs. As the primary state regulator charged with overseeing the development of our natural resources, that means the Railroad Commission of Texas might just be the most consequential non-federal agency in the United States. I often tell people that are in Texas, governor's office is important, lieutenant governor and everybody else's office is important, but just as equal is the Railroad Commission of Texas for its economic benefits and all the things it provides. What I talked about earlier are some really incredible statistics, but as many in this room know, domestic energy producers face daily attacks from the misguided and uninformed. They use green new details to delist and use the words like environmentalism as a means to either restrict or do away with domestic oil and gas production. This is and continues to be a real threat, particularly during the recent Biden administration. And as I often say, you can't get comfortable that we're experiencing time, I think, one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, because remember, the pendulum of politics always swings. My wife likes to remind me that I didn't have any gray hair before I started in this office. And as you can see now, it's turned gray, and I credit that to the Biden administration and the 4 years that I had to go through while he was in office. She often asks me, she says, "What the heck are they doing to you in Austin, Texas?" Thankfully, with this last presidential election, it has been a night and day difference working with the Trump administration compared to the Biden administration. While the threats facing domestic oil and gas producers may have subsided at the federal level, they have not disappeared. Many of the messages and tactics utilized by those claiming to be concerned with the environmental impact of domestic oil and gas production are often amplified and co-opted by our foreign adversaries, particularly those that have oil and gas production themselves. These folks are only striving to subvert and stall Americans' ability to produce energy. If the left cannot achieve their goals at the federal level, they'll bide their time focusing on the state regulatory bodies. A perfect example of this is California. If you just compare the energy story of California to Texas, in 1981, Texas was producing approximately 2.5 million barrels of oil a day. That constituted roughly 30% of all U.S. oil production. That same year, California was responsible for about 1 million barrels a day, or 12% of U.S. production. By the turn of the century, 2000-2001, Texas production was roughly halved to 1.2 million barrels per day. California had also experienced a decline, although not as significant as we saw in Texas, to just under 750,000 barrels per day, still accounting for about 12% of U.S. oil production. Two things have happened in the past 25 years. The first is the shale revolution, which has re-energized Texas domestic production. The second is California's Green New Deal policies, which have proven to be the death by 1,000 cuts for its domestic oil and gas production. Numbers don't lie. California dropped from the nation's third largest crude oil producer in 2014 to the 8th largest in 2024. Last year, California produced just 2.2% of all U.S. oil, as output dropped to under 300,000 barrels a day. This is less than 30% of its 1981 outcome. That's just an example of what politics and policies and regulations can do when handed to the wrong people. Here in Texas, meanwhile, oil production has more than doubled that of its 1981. Today, we have 5.5 million barrels a day. Total 2025 production toppled 2 billion barrels. And most of you are aware, a strong and secure domestic energy industry is the greatest proxy for continued economic success. And access to reliable and affordable energy for our needs for consumers has been proven time and again to be a key contributing factor to reduce poverty and lift the living standards of at least those least fortunate among us. Remember, people tend to move to Texas, and they do that because there's opportunity here. In the past 5 years, Texas population has increased by over 2.5 million new residents coming to our state, the highest growth of any state in the nation. California, meanwhile, has a net loss of over 200,000 residences. They narrowly avoided last place because less than 1,000 more people left New York during that same time. In closing, I'll say this: energy cannot be taken for granted. The Railroad Commission matters, and the leadership at the Railroad Commission is of the utmost importance, not just for Texas, but for the United States as a whole. As global events over the past several years have shown, U.S. energy independence is a cornerstone of U.S. national security and those of our allies. So with that, please bow your heads and let us pray. Dear God, we gather today in the heart of these piney woods, a land long defined by richness of its resources and the resilience of its people. We come before you with grateful hearts, acknowledging that every spark of innovation and every ounce of power we harness is a gift derived from the natural world you have provided. We thank you for the many blessings and gifts you have bestowed upon us and for the natural resources which power our lives, that warms our homes, heals the sick in our hospitals, and fuels the engines of opportunity. May we never take for granted the complex web of human ingenuity and natural bounty that keeps our world in motion. Lord, we know that energy is not merely a commodity, but a pillar of peace and a shield for the vulnerable. When the world feels unstable and the future appears clouded by conflict, we recognize that the security of our neighbors, near and far, often rests upon the work done by the men and women in this industry. Father, we especially lift up our men and women in uniform. We ask for your protection over our troops stationed around the globe as they stand on the front lines of a restless world. Let the energy we produce and the security we provide serve as their strength and their shield. May our efforts here ensure that every resource necessary provides and fulfills their mission and return them safely to their families and homes. Lord, grant us the wisdom to be stewards of your bounty, ensuring it serves as a bridge to stability and a foundation for global harmony. May the work accomplished here contribute to a nation that is strong, a people that are secure, and a world that is brighter for all. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman Wright. It's an honor to have you here as well as others. I'm the chairman of the board, also of the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers, and been able to work with Chairman Wright over the last couple of years in certain issues. And we're a trade organization that represents operators in Austin and in DC. But the largest trade organization is headed by our next speaker, Todd Staples. He was named president of the Texas Oil and Gas Association in November of 2014. Founded in 1919, TACCENEergy is the oldest and largest oil and gas trade association in Texas, representing every facet of the industry. TACCENEergy's membership represents over 90% of Texas's crude oil and natural gas production, operates nearly 90% of the state's refining capacity, and is responsible for a vast majority of the state's pipeline networks that delivers energy across Texas, the nation, and around the world. Working with the TACCENEergy board, Todd has led a multifaceted effort to educate voters and elected officials on the industry's contributions, ensuring that energy policy decisions are grounded in economic and scientific fact. He's also helped build coalitions that support both a strong economy and responsible environmental outcomes. Prior to TACCENEergy, Todd served as the Texas Ag Commissioner, winning 2 statewide elections, and has also served in both the Texas State and House of Representatives, Texas State Senate, thank you. A graduate of Texas A&M University, he began his career on the Palestine City Council, and as a small businessman and rancher, he also serves on the board of Citizens First Bank in Tyler. Todd and his wife, Janet, split their time between Austin and Palestine, so please give a warm welcome to Todd Staples.
Thank you so much, Hunter, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be back in Tyler today. This is actually my lucky week. I was in Tyler last Thursday for the Young Audiences Arts and Education Award to see my longtime friend Margaret Perkins of Citizens First Bank to be recognized with the Icon Award. And one of the things that stood out to me that night, Thursday night, as it does today, is the fact that Tyler thinks regionally, not just individually. You recognize to grow our economy, to be competitive in this state, We have to work together. We have to have a lot of outreach. Last Thursday night, I was very pleased to see educators from different school districts around the East Texas area be recognized for their work in promoting arts and education. When I think about that, that's very typical of Tyler and this community. University of Texas at Tyler has a Palestine campus and a Longview campus. TJC has the Rusk Promise program that the Perkins family got started. The East Texas Food Bank works all over East Texas to meet those who really have needs. And I think that says a lot about this community, the work that you're doing to make East Texas better for everyone, and I appreciate being here today with you. I'm glad to see Railroad Commissioner Jim Wright here serving as chair of the Railroad Commission. Folks, I want to tell you, this is a good man. He does solid work. He focuses on transparency in the regulatory process. He believes the Railroad Commission ought to be run as a science-based organization, not a politically science-based organization. And politics has its place, obviously. I think that, and I think politics needs to make sure you keep serving, Jim Wright. Thank you for your service. You mean a lot to our state, and you're doing a great job. We appreciate you. East Texas is very fortunate that you have several individuals who are serving you in this great state. I saw Chief Justice Worthen there, has had a long history of service on the 12th Court. Fantastic job. I saw Wayne Christian here, but also two state reps here today, Cody Harris and Daniel Alders, who are in the fight every day working for East Texas interests. It's making a difference. Thank you both for what you do. You really are making Texas proud and East Texas proud as well. Obviously, State Senator Brian Hughes, Cole Hefner, and others are doing a great job as well. They're not here today, but they do good work for East Texas. And I'm excited about our state's future, folks. I really am. And to start off the conversation today, there's two observations from a book that I've been reading called The Future After AI by Dr. Jason Schenker. And these two observations, I think, set the tone in talking about energy today. Here's the first one. Not a single country had a high per capita GDP and a low per capita energy consumption. I want to repeat that. Not a single country had a high per capita GDP and a low per capita energy consumption. The second one is much like it. There are no high growth countries without significant energy consumption. Now, folks, you're very blessed here in East Texas. Delic is a sponsor. I see Mewburn Oil Company represented here today. Many other oil and gas companies that are a part of this community that do work here, all over Texas, and some all over the United States. I'm very glad the voices that were trying to stop oil and gas for the last 10 years failed. How about you? Oil and natural gas has built a fantastic economy. Oil and natural gas has ushered in a new era of life. It is the power behind our power. It powers modern life, and I'm excited to talk about that with you today and to share some information with you. And I have a little PowerPoint to go through that. The Texas Oil and Gas Association has been around for over 100 years. Our member companies are involved in every aspect of the industry. Our service industry, the growing LNG that's being exported all across the world today, our refining industry like Delic, as was mentioned earlier today, the men and women that move product across the state and the nation, and our midstream industry, and obviously upstream production that makes such a difference in our great state. Neil Carlton's here with me today. Neil is president, and it runs our workers' comp safety group. I saw Neil earlier. I think he's still here. There he is. Hey, Neil. Neil, safety is very important to our member companies, taking care of the men and women that work in this industry. Neil runs the safety group that works on our workers' comp safety program that's administered through Texas Mutual, works with many local agents here in the East Texas area, as well as our association health plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield that wants to make certain people have access to affordable health care. And I know health care is important for Tyler. You've got a medical school, UT Tyler, and some great exciting things for this community. I'm really glad to see the Chamber celebrating 250 years of America. And we've got some great opportunities There it is. I knew I got to figure out how to control this thing up here today, and I think I will. America is what it is today because of what's represented in this room, folks. I'm glad that we've been blessed as a nation. I'm glad we've had a generation of leaders who have committed their lives to building a better America, living longer and freer than any country in the world, and it's up to this generation to continue that. And I know that you all take this seriously here in Tyler, Texas, and in the East Texas area. Now, the scene that you're looking at there is what you've been seeing on the nightly news for the last few weeks, right? And if you look, it's amazing that 21 miles in the Strait of Hormuz is what has disrupted the marketplace of oil and gas commodities throughout the world. And you see Iran and the coastline that they have on the strait, and all the other countries that are negatively influenced because Iran is targeting their oil and gas infrastructure. Iran has decided to stop the flow of product through that narrow strip that really has unraveled what is taking place around the world today. The next slide shows some of those countries and their production and where their destinations happen to be, so you can get a kind of feel on the global impact that this is having. Anytime you have a disruption of the supply chain, you have a bigger impact. And if you think about this incident that's occurring now as compared to previous ones in modern history, this one is the most impactful, is what most researchers say. But the impact has been muted because of the strength of American oil and gas. And I want to talk about, we're not immune, obviously, but we are in a position of power and strength. Energy security equals national security, and it's because the United States of America is doing such amazing things. I'm going to see if this will work here. This is supposed to be a graphic that if I click it again, it's still not going to work. If it worked right, you would see a whole bunch of red dots going back and forth through the strait, showing the level of activity that was occurring prior to Israel and the United States going into Iran. And then it lessened quite a bit, but it's not working this morning, so you'll have to use your imagination to get there with me. But what you don't have to use your imagination is to look at the numbers of the United States of America, the #1 oil and gas producing country in the world. And if the naysayers that have been challenging oil and gas had been successful, we would not be there today. We would be ranking much lower than that. But because of hydraulic fracturing and because of horizontal drilling combined, unlocking shale rock, it is amazing where we are today, the #1 producer. And you can see Texas as the 4th largest in the world if we were our own country, as Chairman Wright pointed out. Look where Iran is. Texas is almost twice the production of Iran. And that's why we are more secure energy today, because of the type of production that's made possible from the men and women in oil and gas. And it's having a big impact on our nation and our world. American energy dominance is the reason that we are positioned where we are today. It's because of men and women that have invested in America, men and women that have invested in innovation and research and technology. I'm told today that the recovery rate from shale oil and gas production is about 5 to 10% of the oil that's actually in that rock, and that it's about 10 to 20% of the natural gas that's there. Just imagine the next few years as technology advances on just a small percentage increase of what's being recovered through the extraction process, what that will mean on the availability to continue producing oil and natural gas that this world depends upon. And it's because of the brightest minds in the world who are focused on delivering this product to make certain that Texas and America continues to be well positioned. Now, there's 3 numbers I hope you remember today: 27, 495, and 31. 27, 495, and 31. 27 is because this industry paid $27 billion in state and local taxes and state royalties just last year. Folks, that's more than the entire tax revenues of 34 states. I just can't imagine how much harder Representative Harrison and Alder's jobs would be if you didn't. It's hard anyway, I know that it is. But it would be even harder if we didn't have oil and gas contributing in such a amount of funding our schools, funding our roads, funding our first responders, funding our regulatory agencies like the Railroad Commission that Chairman Wright serves on. And even an Aggie like me can do the math and know that that's $74 million a day that's going toward these causes. It's amazing. So 27 is the 27 billion, I hope you remember. 495 are the almost 500,000 jobs this industry has in direct employment, folks. These are some of the highest paying jobs in Texas. Oil and natural gas jobs are 68% higher than what the normal, regular private sector economy is. These jobs, if you look at both the indirect and induced benefits, is responsible, depending on which economist you talk to. Economists have a broad array of being able to put things in context, but upward to 2 million jobs in Texas, and I think that's a very conservative one that oil and gas is responsible for. So 27 billion, 495,000 jobs, right at 500,000 today, and then 31. Oil and natural gas represents 31% of the entire private sector gross state product in Texas. That's the cornerstone, that's the foundation of our economy. When oil and gas is doing well, all of Texas is doing better. And that's what we want to see, and good things happen for our state. 27, 495, and 31. Now, when a lot of people look at Texas, this is what they see. They see Texas, we're kind of a red state. We're down here holding the country together. When I see Texas in the United States, this is what I see. And folks, it's no exaggeration, because the numbers that both Commissioner Wright and I have spoken about today, 43% of the nation's oil production, almost 30% of the nation's natural gas production, over a third of our nation's refining capacity, and almost a quarter of our nation's pipelines. Right here in the Lone Star State, that's worth celebrating. It really is. And it doesn't happen by chance. The cornerstone of it all is the private ownership of property. It's the fact that mineral owners can coordinate and cooperate with oil and gas producers to produce the private property that they own to their benefit. That's not what goes on around the rest of the world. And it's because we have the 95% of Texas property is privately owned, not government owned, is the reason that you see all these good things happening today. If we had a quiz today, you probably know this because of the news recently, what country has the #1 proven oil reserves in the world? Venezuela, that's right. But Venezuela ranks a distant 25th in terms of global production because of the politics and policies surrounding their country and the ownership of minerals and private property. You don't have to be the biggest in terms of ownership to be the best. Texas proves that. And we've got to continue that same philosophy because it's being challenged. It's being challenged every day by misinformation and disinformation designed to sway public policy to whatever the latest fad happened to be. I'm glad that we now have an administration that treats oil and gas as an asset, not a liability. And if we have that, we know we'll continue to see investment and good things happen in our state. Now, I mentioned innovation and technology. Mike Worth was at CERAWeek. I left yesterday night to come back to East Texas. My home is still in Palestine. When I was elected Ag Commissioner, my wife told me the Constitution may require me to live in Austin, but it does not require her to. And so Palestine is still home today, and I'm very proud of that. But at CERAWeek, there's 10,000 people from 85 countries around the world talking about energy. Mike Worth, the chairman of Chevron, was on a panel yesterday morning and said, never bet against innovation and technology. And to make that point, if you look at the slide with me, the big blue bar on the left represents the year 2015, when the United States had about 1,543 operating rigs. And in 2025, the number of rigs in January was like 580 something. I think it's down to 540 something right now, somewhere in that neighborhood. The red bar on the left is the production in 2015, 9.2 million barrels a day. 10 years later, 13.7 million barrels a day with about a third fewer rigs. The year-over-year increase in productivity from oil and gas extraction has been remarkable. And it's the reason that we've been able to be competitive. It's the reason we're able to lead the world in oil and gas production. Not because we just have to have the most. We've got good rock. We've got good geology, good geologists. But we've got some of the brightest minds in the world. At Texaco, we have about 15 standing committees, not of politicians like me, of geologists and hydrologists and reservoir engineers and others who come together to find solutions for what the challenges are and to offer good solutions. And good things are in store for Texas because of that. And if you think about it, it's growth that is happening right here. These are growth numbers, folks. 13 billion cubic feet per day is what we export from Texas and from Texas produced natural gas through LNGs and pipelines. We have 7 new facilities that are being built along the Texas Gulf Coast today that will add 8 billion cubic feet a day of additional LNG export capacity from the Lone Star State. Folks, people are lined up literally at the doorstep of Texas in energy need. Can you imagine the world today if Texas and the United States had not responded the way we have? Good things are happening. This next slide is unbelievable. Actually, that needs to be updated. There's 55 BCF a day of new natural gas pipeline capacity that's being discussed, over half of which is already under construction. Over half of that, and that totals about what we have existing today. So there's a bright future for oil and natural gas. The world is growing. Our world's population is growing. We need more energy, not less. We need more transmission lines, Tom. We need more natural gas pipelines. We need more highways. John Barton, one of your speakers that knows all about that from his career at where he's at today and formerly at TxDOT. We need more water, Chairman Harris, who's chairman of the House Resources Committee, Natural Resources, that's looking at water needs in our state and how we're going to meet those water needs. We have to have more broadband capacity. And look, there are a lot of people out there today that are worried about new highways, worried about new transmission lines. I get that. I understand that. I'm a private property owner, and I'm glad that Texans put private property ownership above everything else. We also have to have jobs. When I ran for office a few years ago, our slogan was, the best solution to poverty is a job, and nothing has changed about that. And if you want a better life, if you want more opportunity, if you want this next generation to have everything that we've had, then we need more jobs. And the Tyler Chamber's working on that, and that's why y'all are focused on that, the economic development leadership, and we appreciate the good work that you all are doing. It makes a difference. While oil and gas is producing more, emissions have been going down. We've been good stewards of the environment. Oil and natural gas has produced cleaner and more environmentally friendly in the United States than any other country in the world. And in fact, methane emission intensity has declined by about 50% in a couple of years in the Permian Basin, according to S&P Global Platts study that has been monitoring this and watching. Good things are in store if we continue to use good science and good technology. And it's all about producing oil and gas better than anyone else. It's about moving that product safely and efficiently across our country. It's about taking those products and refining them and processing those products into the products that we use each and every day. And then it's about access to global markets. You know, some people had said during this crisis we might need to stop exporting product in order to address our situation here at home. And that's really smart, isn't it? Fix a supply problem by creating more supply problems. The reality is we are benefiting today and we're insulated because we have a global marketplace that we participate in. And it doesn't matter if you're in the cattle business, you're in the timber business, you're in the cotton business, or you're in the oil and gas business. The reason we have more production in the United States and in Texas is because we have access to global markets. I kind of think like Bluebell. is the way I think about natural gas. Use all you can and sell the rest. I used to say, eat all you can and sell the rest. That didn't work too good, but Cheetos are dusted with something that's made from natural gas. It's true, look it up. I guess that's why I like Cheetos so much. We have a bright future ahead, folks, and there's 3 areas that I wanted you to be look that up. If you don't trust me, look that up. I majored in the social sciences in college, not the hard scientists, but I did look that up. If you think about where are growth opportunities for Texas, what's going to benefit our state, what's going to benefit our nation, I just want to touch on three key ones just real quickly and wrap up here. The first growth opportunity is LNG. Liquefied natural gas is the cornerstone foundational fuel that's making our power systems in Texas work. If you look at when you need electricity the most, it's when there's a time of crisis where everybody's wanting it, right? And if we didn't have dependable, reliable natural gas powering our systems, we wouldn't be able to make it. And liquefied natural gas, we've got more than we can use, and as I mentioned, we're not getting it all out today. The reason that that the world is suffering from higher prices today and we're not is because we have an abundance right here in Texas and we're producing it and we're doing a good job with it. LNG is a tremendous growth opportunity. The next growth opportunity is carbon capture and storage that's going to benefit people in a variety of ways. If you're a surface owner that has pore space beneath your land that you never think about, you never take advantage of, there's no way to monetize that. If a company comes to you to store carbon dioxide under your land, you can know that science has proven that there's a 99% retention rate up to 1,000 years for that carbon dioxide. There's literally billions of dollars that are going to be invested in CO2 storage and enhanced oil recovery. You get a lot more oil out of the ground when you pump CO2 down and you pump oil out. And as we think about new recovery techniques, that is projected to continue to grow as well. And it's highly regulated and highly efficient. And it makes us able to participate in the global marketplace for selling our oil and natural gas because we have CO2 storage, and Texas is positioned to lead. We're positioned to make money out of it, to create jobs out of it, and it's going to be very good for our state and for our industry and for our landowners. The third area is in produced water. In the Permian Basin, some geologic formations, you get 3 barrels of oil for every 3 barrels of water for every 3 barrels of oil. Our producers wish you got 3 barrels of oil for every barrel of water, but it's the reverse. Some of them you get 5 and 6 barrels of water for every barrel of oil. Produced water, our industry is committed to finding beneficial uses for the produced water in order to help meet the state's growing demand for water. And it can be used in agriculture, and if I was advanced, I guess you should have had AI prepare this, shouldn't I? That's what my problem was. It would show somebody baling hay over there on the right side of that screen. And agriculture can use that on non-edible crops, but pretty soon you'll be able to use that because pilot projects are being done along with the Produced Water Consortium at Texas Tech. You got any Red Raiders around here too? All right, I figured we had some Red Raiders, probably have a Longhorn or two. I don't know. I'm still recovering from checks I had to write to UT for one of our kids. So I had to go to counseling over that, Tom. It was rough. Good things are happening. We have some of the best universities in the country right here in the Lone Star State that are working to deliver good things for America, good things for Texas, and certainly you all are a part of that. But you've got a job to do. Obviously, you're here today. Obviously, you're leaders in your community. But there's a lot of people that are listening to the voices of mischief and misinformation and disinformation. And I hope that you will join with us and become an energy advocate. I hope that you will vote. There's a runoff election in Texas, May 26th. You ready? Everybody remember? You just voted on March the 3rd in the primary, May 26th. Jim Wright knows a little bit about that May 26th date coming up. I hope that you'll vote. Texas Oil and Gas Association Good Government Committee is Texoga PAC. We make some endorsements in those races. If you're interested, take a look at that. But you can also be an energy champion yourself. You need to work to get the right message out. Mr. Carr and I talked about that, about getting the message out, getting the information out, having voter education so that we can have a Texas that we can be proud of. We can all play a part of that. We can all play that role, and I certainly hope that you will do that. If you have your iPhone, you can scan that QR code. And I'm going to wait till somebody scans that or till they fake me out and make me think, okay, good, she faked me out. If you scan that, you can sign up to get information. You have to take some steps to do that, but you can get information to find out about activities that are affecting this area or that might be affecting your job. And I hope that you'll be an energy advocate, an energy champion, and help spread the word about the good things that are going on. We have a podcast now that we have some really of the brightest minds in Texas that we're sharing candid conversations about energy that we'll hope you'll take a look at. And then I want to close with this one quote for us to think about as you wrap up today. The minister of the United Arab Emirates of Industry and Advanced Technology had this quote yesterday at Sarah Week in Houston that I thought was very applicable to where we're at. I want you to think about it. Energy is not the end goal. Energy is not the end goal. It is the foundation for everything that comes next. Thank you for making Texas Energy strong. It's good to be with you today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gates Brailsford, and I would like to introduce a great company today. We're excited today to have R. Lacey join us and present today. As many of you know, they're an established operator. They're based in Longview, Texas. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging Rogers Crane, who's one of the company owners. He's responsible for helping us get the company to present today, and we really appreciate that. Brent Haas he serves as the Chief Operating Officer of the company, and he will present to us today the story and the operations of this exciting company. Brent assumed that role in 2025 after holding positions of increasing responsibility, including Senior VP of Acquisitions and Development, VP of Engineering, and he joined the company in 2014. As COO, Brent oversees the company's operational execution of its Haynesville Shale Development Program. His responsibilities include driving operational efficiencies, organizing development plans, coordinating cross-functional teams, and ensuring that drilling and completion activities align with corporate objectives and economic objectives. Brent began his career with Haas Petroleum Engineering as a reservoir engineer, where he focused on preparing field studies and reserve reports for both public and private oil and gas companies. His work there provided broad exposure to reservoirs across the continental United States and helped develop his expertise in unconventional resources. Brent holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from, of course, Texas A&M University. Brent.
Well, thank you to Gates for the kind introduction there, and thank you for having us here. Thank you for the Tyler Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for all the event sponsors, and thank you to Todd. That was an excellent intro into our discussion here. He handled a lot of the global, the macro topics, and so this talk will take it a little bit smaller and look at an operating company that is active in the Haynesville Shale And we'll go through the agenda here. Let me get the slides working. So we'll start today with a company history. Not sure how familiar everyone here is with R. Lacey and Crane Energy, but want to give you a little bit of background on our company and its long legacy. Then we'll get into a little bit more about the present day. We'll talk about our current management team and spend a little time on our current asset base. We are focused on developing our Haynesville Shale reserves and give you a little bit of background on our asset, but then I know there's a lot of interest just in the Haynesville play at large. So the last two slides, we'll just get into what's going on with the Haynesville over the trend and what is going on today, and give you a little more feel for this large, important resource play that's in our backyard. And then we will try to save some time at the end to open it up to any questions. So you can't start a talk about R. Lacey without talking about its founder. Got some great pictures here of Rogers Lacey. That top one is him as a young man, and the bottom picture is him in the prime of his career in oil and gas. I've got a few notes. I could do a whole presentation here today about Rogers Lacey and his life. It's a phenomenal story. I just want to give you a few highlights. Rogers, he was born in 1982 in Longview, and he was orphaned at an early age. So he was raised by his siblings and left school in the 5th grade to begin working for the family business. He was an early entrepreneur. He worked as a railroad telegraph operator, a sawmill owner, a planing mill owner. He had his first oil and gas venture in 1911, and the time of 1911 to 1915. He diversified his business in farming, retail, real estate, and land acquisitions through the 1920s. And he really got his start in oil and gas in the East Texas oil field when, in 1932, with the first well, the Lawson Lacey number 2A. Interesting story about that well. It was a very competitive time in the field. There was a lease term that said the operator had to drill that well within 10 days of executing the lease. If they didn't drill it within 10 days, Rogers Lacey could take that rig himself and drill it by himself. Guess what? They did not get to drill it in 10 days, and Rogers Lacey took him up on it and drilled the well himself. Came in with an absolute open flow of about 20,000 barrels a day, so pretty good little start into the oil and gas business there in the East Texas oil field. But he didn't stop there. He had a lot of discovery wells and established major positions in the Willow Springs field in Gregg County, the Hawkins field in Wood County, the Carthage field in Panola County, expanded those operations into Mississippi and South Texas. And he was so active in Mississippi, there's actually a train stop, or was at the time, and it was the Rogers Lacey, Mississippi train stop. He was one of the really interesting things. He got into real estate and decided to design a hotel. Owned a city block in Dallas, and he had Frank Lloyd Wright design that hotel. There's a good drawing of that, and never got built, unfortunately, but as a beautiful design. And Rogers Lacey passed in 1947, and so at that time he left the company to his wife, his widow, Lawson Lacey. And from there, we kind of get into the timeline here. You look at the 1950s through the 80s. It was a time of managing those assets, of paying down the debt that Rogers had taken on to grow his businesses, and kind of staying around the East Texas footprint with some satellite projects. Then you move into the 90s and the 2000s. It was a time of modernization. The company really grew at that time with projects in the Panola County area, growing the Cotton Valley operated position, but also there was a lot of diversification in that time, getting active across Louisiana, Arkansas, Colorado, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, and Wyoming. So there was a diversified approach. Those included operated projects. Those included some investment with trusted joint venture partners. And finally, we get to the mid-2010s, and that's where I actually enter the picture. So that's, I came to the company in 2014. And we were really looking across the landscape. You know, one thing about being a family-owned and operated company, you have to change with the times. And always look at your assets, at your business strategy. And we looked at that, and we had goals to grow the company, to sustain growth. We have no exit strategy, so we needed to build scale. We needed something reliable, and we looked across the landscape and shrunk that back down to our operated position here in Panola County in Carthage, and essentially became a pure player in the Haynesville at that time. So the rest of this conversation, we'll kind of talk more about our detailed Haynesville position, and start on the next slide. So you can't go after the Haynesville without a really great team. I won't go through every team member here, but we had to assemble a team of, and some of them were existing at the company when I got there. Some of them have been hired since. But you can see as you look across, we've got experience from large major oil companies down to independents, and a vast amount of experience across resource plays and conventional plays as well. And so you know, it's a very technical play, the Haynesville. It's a very, has a lot of challenges, from just establishing the land position and working through those issues to the actual drilling and completion of the wells, which has become a very engineering intensive task. And so that staff is here. We have our headquarters there in Longview, Texas still, and that's where most of the oil and gas company resides. We have our field office there in Carthage, and then we also have a corporate office in Houston. So we'll jump into the kind of the asset overview here. You can see this is a broad Haynesville outline. Kind of the light blue is the state line showing Louisiana. The white background with the counties behind it would be the Texas side. That dark blue acreage position is our acreage position across the Haynesville Shale. And so we have currently 37,000 net acres of Haynesville. And as I said, when we focused and essentially became that pure player in 2017, we started with about 13,000 acres. So slowly and steadily over that time, we've just been adding acreage to the position. We're trying to triple that position, and we're getting pretty close. But we're up about 180% from where we started. Gross production, we produce about 225 million cubic feet of gas per day, and that is up about 700% from when we started the Haynesville wells. These are large gas-producing wells. We currently operate 228 wells. 50 of those are Haynesville. We do have our legacy Cotton Valley vertical wells, some from the Travis Peak and the Pettit as well, 178 of those, and 154 miles of pipeline. So why do we choose the Haynesville? We looked at a lot of different, we were already in a lot of different projects, looked at a lot of different strategies. This really kind of boils it down to the core concepts here, but it's a low-cost, high-quality natural gas basin, one of the best places that you can be. It has direct access to global markets, an extensive pipeline infrastructure. That was big for us. We could see, you know, Todd talked about the LNG story, the access that the Haynesville has to get to those LNG exports is huge and gives a lot of stability to the operating environment of the Haynesville Shale, having that export capacity. Obviously with Texas, it's a very stable, oil and gas friendly regulatory environment. It's a well-defined resource with repeatable results. So as we look across oil and gas, we have identified a number of world-class shale resource plays. Some people think that looks a little bit boring. I mean, the wells are almost more repeatable. They span, you can see how large, it spans counties. You can drill, no longer are we are looking for discrete targets. we have a lot of data on the reservoir and a good idea with how these wells are going to perform. It's really come from a science of, finding that we know where the resource is, it's making it as commercial as possible and designing those wells to make that the gas in these zones that really are extremely tight and require hydraulic fracturing, making that a commercial endeavor. The strategic priorities of our company, just proactively manage the legacy Cotton Valley declines, our legacy asset, expand this Haynesville production through bolt-on acquisitions, farming, active leasing. That is what we've been doing since 2017 and continue to do. We're running one rig in the Haynesville trend right now, and that is our goal, to keep one rig running in the trend continuously. And then just maintain a disciplined, long view-based operating organization. A little different than some companies our size. As I said earlier, we do not have an exit strategy. Is our intent to own and operate an oil and gas company in Longview, Texas. So we'll move on to the more of the trend at large. And this map is pulled from our IHS subscription. Some of these numbers, hopefully you can read them on the screen, but want to give you a sense of who the active players are and where they are. You saw our footprint there in Panola County, and you can see this map represents spud activity. The left side, the map in that table, I just filtered down to 2026. So these are spuds since 2026. We've got a pad spud in the northwest corner there of Panola County. Those are our tower wells. We're the dark blue. But as we rank, that table on the left is ranked by operator. You see Apex there at the top. They've got 25 spuds. Apex actually is backed by Citadel. They made an entry into the Haynesville. They acquired a company, Paloma Natural Gas, and have made a number of acquisitions since then, have been growing their footprint, and they're getting after it. If you look at the rig count, they've got 13 rigs. There's currently about 52 rigs in the play. They've got 13 of those running, and so they're by far the leader. They're not wasting any time on getting after development of the Haynesville. You move from there to Expand. That was the merger of Chesapeake and Southwestern. And then Athen is the next name. Adamas is actually the new name. Mitsubishi, you may have read, acquired the Athen position here of recent, and they're rolling that under a new name. And then you have Comstock with 9 spuds. TGNR is Tokyo Natural Gas. They are actually in our area and the large player in our kind of northeastern area of the trend. And then you've got BPX, Exco, Sabine, Silver Hill, Insight, GEP. You've got us, our Lacey, then Rockcliffe, Roaring Fork, Tanos, Azul, and Pine Wave. So rounding out that 52 rig program, and you can kind of see it's pretty well distributed across the different areas of this large asset base and this large play. I think one interesting thing to put on the plot that we added to the right is just the spud activity since the start of the play in 2007. You can see that it peaked, in about 2009. I mean, you pushed up to over 100 spuds a month. And so that was at the height of delineating the play, the land grab, a lot of people putting rigs to work. And one thing to note at that time, though, the rigs weren't nearly as efficient as Todd mentioned earlier, and so they were drilling shorter laterals. We'll get into a little bit more about that here in a second. But drilling shorter laterals, and so they weren't quite the wells that we're drilling to date. And so you can see as gas prices fell down through 2012, kind of into 2016, the spud activity dropped as well. You can see about the time we entered the play in 2017 full-time, what really changed, commodity prices moved up a little bit. Completion technology enhanced greatly in improving the amount of gas that we can get out of these wells. And so you got an increase in spud activity from that time. You can see the high prices we had in 22 drove that rig activity up to a peak, and we're off of that a little bit. But to give you a sense of, the amount of growth we're getting with current rigs, you see the early spike there in spud activity. At that time, we ramped up production to about 10 BCF a day in the Haynesville trend. Now, if you look at it currently, we've got, so just about 10 BCF a day. That in 2022, when we ramped up the rigs, we broke over 16 BCF a day in the Haynesville trend at large. And then we have fallen off of that a little bit, but you can see with the increase in pricing we've had here of recent and the additional rig activity, it's coming up a little bit, and we're about 14 BCF a day. So it gives you a sense of with less rigs, we're producing more gas, currently, and get into a little bit more of the why on the next slide. Okay, so a lot of information on this slide, but I wanted to give you a sense of how the play has changed over the years. This is a query on our IHS data set of wells that have at least 3,000 feet of completed lateral length. And when you filter that down, you're just a little bit over 7,500 wells in the trend. And I might start with that table at the top. You start with well count, and you can see that we've got that broken into buckets. And we may start all the way at the right in that light gray. Those are really the producing wells that came online, and there's a little over 3,600 of them before 2017. And the reason I put that distinction in here is because that was before we really came into what we call the Generation 2 fracs, or the larger stimulations, modern day stimulations in the Haynesville trend. Then we look at the wells in the black. Those would be the post-2017 completions, and there's about 2,700 of those. Those would be wells in between that, and then if you look at the pink and the red and the purples, that's more of the newer trends, newer wells in the play. So black would take you from 2017 up to those wells that have about 3 years of production history in the pink. And then the red would be those wells of about 2 years of production history. Then you get into the light purple. Those wells have 6 to 12 months of production history. And then the dark is 0 to 6 months. Then you get to the yellow. Those are wells in the completion status, so currently being fracked in the play. Then you've got your spuds at 348 and your permits at 139. So it's a lot of information, but gives you a sense of what the current activity is. And more importantly, if you look at that chart on the left, that is the average performance of an average well within each one of those groups. So to break that down a little bit more, one thing important about these wells is how many feet that you complete. Once we drill down and go horizontally, we used to drill about 5,000 feet horizontally. Today we go 12,000 feet to 15,000 feet long. To compare one well to another, a lot of times you compare the amount of gas taken out of that well per foot of lateral. And so this chart represents on the y-axis gas in MCF per day per foot of completed lateral. And that way you can compare some of the earlier wells in the trend to some of the later wells in the trend. That is your average well profile for the buckets, and those colors match the colors on the top of that table. The big thing to note here is the change in completion style. So that light gray line you can see came in significantly low, and that's back when you can see from the table, if you look here, we list the amount of proppant put in the well, the amount of fluid put in the well, the spacing, the depth. At that time, we were putting about 1,500 pounds of proppant per foot of lateral and about 42 barrels of water per foot of lateral when we frack these wells and make them produce. So that's what we have to pump down the wellbore, because the rock will not produce on its own, and we break it up with the water, and we use the sand to create conductivity so we can flow that gas to the wellbore. The big change from the gray to the black is really this frac size. We went up more than double the proppant and to about 3,600 pounds a foot and 82 barrels a foot. And that's really what we've done since then is refine that completion technique We put a bigger hammer on it, a bigger frac, we're producing more gas. Well, now we're trying to make that, that completion as efficient as possible and keep it near the wellbore so that we can drill as many wells as possible and get them as close together and efficiently drain the reservoir. And so the big change there was the completion volumes. The other change you'll see is just the lateral length. If we look at the lateral length in that light gray, they're about 5,000-foot laterals. A lot of them were drilling single sections in the Louisiana trend, so you've got a mile to work with there. Then once we got the technology to drill out further, it actually is a much more capital efficient exercise once you've drilled the vertical hole to go out longer and get a bigger gas well. And so you see that trend has been moving up over time to where we're routinely drilling over 12,000 feet in laterals now. There are operators pushing 15,000 feet. There are operators pushing up to 20,000 feet, and that's one thing that, that we like about the play. It continues to get better as engineering and completion technology changes over time. And so that is just hopefully giving you a little sense of, you know, what has gone on in the play since 2007, because I know everybody has been aware of it. It's in our backyard, but it's gone through a number of evolutions. And so with that, I would just like to open it up to, I think we have a few minutes for questions here, and open it up to the crowd if anyone has any. Y'all can't make it this easy on me. Yes, they're not completing all of them. They are developing a DUC inventory. It's kind of an interesting dynamic in the play is, you know, and I've heard Expand also, Chesapeake Southwestern, talk about their strategy. As you look at this asset base, some companies are looking at it as almost a way to supplement storage. Like, we're short on gas storage. They can drill and frack the wells and leave them in a completed state so that when prices do respond, they can just open the choke, enter that gas into the market. And I do think, I don't know the ins and outs of Citadel's strategy, but I do think that's part of it. Drill, create that productive capacity so that they can respond to the market prices when they get there. A lot of companies would drill and not complete, but you still have, once you hit that commodity price, it might take you 60, 90 days to get that gas online if you have to get a frac crew out there and complete it. So they're actually going through, you're seeing, you have the term DUC, that's if you drill it, leave it uncompleted. You have the term TIL, which is if it's drilled and completed, ready to turn in line, is the TIL term there. And so it's been an interesting, every operator, and we're included, I mean, we're in a different ball game than some of those with extremely large budgets. But gas price volatility is here and is here to stay. That's one of the biggest things we have a challenge to deal with, is it's changing on us every day. And really the cycle times on these pads, we have to drill 3 to 4 of these wells at a time. When we make the decision to invest, and most pads cost $50 million a piece, roughly, to drill and complete, we're not going to bring on that gas for a year. And you can look at the Wall Street Journal and see the commodity price of gas go up and down every day. How do you build a business around that? Well, what we've done is we've had to change our thinking. Historically, we've liked that exposure to volatility, but with those long cycle times on our investment, we're starting to hedge into, you know, commodity price stream that will protect those out years and that near-term investment, so we can be confident running that rig. Some of these other companies have deeper pockets where they can sink that much capital in the ground and leave it and wait for those really high times of commodity price to make up for it. So that's not a game that we can play, but I do think that might be what Citadel's doing, and I've heard Expand talk about that as well. Absolutely. So we want it to come on as big and as fast as it can possibly come on and provide that takeaway for us. We don't go to direct contracts with the LNG facilities themselves, but our takeaway contracts are designed or are taking the gas to the coast, and that is the demand center. And if you look at the growth there, we are expecting significant growth as you get into the end of the decade. Nobody knows for sure, but I think we showed the graphic. We're at about 14 BCF a day in export capacity now. They expect that to grow to 30 BCF a day by the end of the decade. And so that's one of the reasons we picked the Haynesville. We feel like it's uniquely situated. It has the takeaway to get to that LNG capacity. And that is where a lot of the growth is going to come from. We will have domestic, and we still are weather driven, but we are moving toward it being a global commodity. Great question. Any others? Thank you.
All right, I'm not sure how Henry and everybody let me slip it by him, but every speaker we had today just about was an Aggie. And so I feel like my job is done. So you're welcome, by the way, Henry. Our last speaker not only is an Aggie, class of 1986, but he also represents Texas A&M as the executive director of the Texas A&M Rellis campus. It's a 3,300-acre innovation and technology campus focused on advancing research, education, and workforce development. He also serves as an interim vice chancellor for business affairs for the Texas A&M University system, overseeing real estate development, public-private partnerships, and system-wide operational initiatives. Prior to his current role, he served for 30 years with the Texas Department of Transportation, rising from an entry-level position all the way up to Deputy Executive Director, where he led statewide operations and policy development. He has also held senior leadership positions in the private sector with the HNTB Corporation, driving national strategy and growth across key transportation markets. A distinguished Aggie engineer, he's also received numerous national and state honors for his contributions to transportation and infrastructure, reflecting a career dedicated to public service and innovation. He told me earlier his real most important title that he has is Papa to his 3 grandkids. So welcome, John Barton.
Howdy. All right, I love that. That's the official greeting from Texas A&M, so I had to do that. And I'm thrilled to be here on behalf of Chancellor Glenn Hager and our Board of Regents. So appreciative of the invitation to be with all of you today. I'd like for all of you to look up here with me. If you don't mind, I'm going to get a selfie real quick so I can put this out on LinkedIn that we were all together and we had a great time. So one over there, one over there. Okay, thank you for that. So I can make sure my wife knows that I was really here. So that's the most important thing. A lot of things are happening at Texas A&M Rellis, shaping the future for our state and for our nation. And I'm thrilled to be here to share a little bit about that with you. And that saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words is true. And if it's true, then a video is worth about 10 million words. So I'd like for you to now watch a video about Texas A&M Rellis.
What kind of world do you want to live in? A smarter world? A peaceful world? A safer world? On 3,300 acres, deep in the heart of Texas, those world views are being put to the test. In all kinds of ways. It's a place called Texas A&M Rellis, a beacon of innovation, collaboration, and service that is making the world a better place. Here, we are leading Texas and serving the nation. It's where passion meets purpose. Innovation roams freely, and limitations are ignored. RELIS is where research, education, and technology go to work. To not only prepare for the future, but create it. Seeking answers to the biggest questions, like how will we combat threats to our way of life? How will autonomy and connectivity change transportation? How will robotics, hypercomputing, and artificial intelligence interface with human intelligence? How will we maintain our leadership in national security and take it to new heights? How will reliable energy power progress and strengthen our grid? How will science, engineering, and agricultural innovation sustain communities for generations? And how will we build a better way forward that stands the test of time? The answers are here. This is Texas A&M RELIS. This is who we are, what we're made of, and what we stand for on the most groundbreaking 3,300 acres on Earth. Texas A&M RELIS, leading Texas, serving the nation.
All right. Well, thank you for that. It's okay to applaud for that. I'm pretty proud of that video. I show it about 20 times a week, and appreciate you giving me a chance to share it with you. So I'd like to share a little bit more about the Texas A&M University system. Oop. Here we go. Because Texas A&M RELIS is not a degree-issuing university. You don't come to Texas A&M RELIS and get a degree. But we are an amalgamation of all of the Texas A&M University system. So we're made up of 12 universities across the great state of Texas, our flagship in College Station, and then the regional campuses around the state. We also are a part of the system that has 8 state agencies. So all of these agencies, is a reference that I worked for a state agency before. All of these are a part of the Texas A&M University system and a part of Texas A&M RELIS. We have 2 system campuses, the RELIS campus that I am the CEO of, as well as one in Fort Worth that's starting to come out of the ground, Texas A&M Fort Worth. And then we do have the national laboratories of Pantax and Los Alamos that we are responsible for operating and maintaining. And those are the organizations that perform that research, innovation, technology development at Texas A&M RELIS with private sector interest and state and federal partners to really develop the solutions that we're talking about for the future of this great state. Why Texas A&M? And I think it was interesting that the speakers today were former students, and we're proud of that. As we think about the energy industry and what's so important to this group of men and women who are leading this industry here in the great state of Texas, Texas A&M Engineering positions us uniquely to really respond to the challenges that are facing our state, our nation, and the world. And as Chairman Wright said so appropriately, energy ensures security and prosperity, and Texas has and must continue to be the leader in energy for this nation. Chairman Staples also said it, that energy security equals national security, and that's one of the primary reasons that we are investing in this. But we have 25,000 students within the College of Engineering at Texas A&M University, 15 departments that issue degrees in engineering, and we are the largest undergraduate program in the country for engineering, and all of that capacity, all of that capability is being leveraged with our private partners to help drive forward the types of solutions that you deliver to run your businesses and to serve your communities each and every day. This is a map of Texas A&M RELIS. We started as an Army air base in the 1940s where men and women were trained that were members of the Army to be pilots to fight in World War II and then in the Korean War. And after the Korean War, this campus was decommissioned and turned over to Texas A&M, and we've been out there since then doing a lot of things. We are currently now a place where education does exist, research and workforce development, as well as innovation, product development, and testing on 3,300 acres, as you saw in the video. And over the last 9 years, our private sector partners, as well as our state and federal partners, have invested over $1.5 billion in additional capacity in terms of research facilities and proving grounds. So we are the place that is very uniquely positioned to allow all of this applied research to be done at scale, where we can test, break, fix, and test solutions over and over again until they are ready to be deployed commercially across the country. And we're able to do that in a place where you can do anything at Texas A&M Rellis. You can blow up bombs, you can shoot rockets off. We've had a laser shot, the only laser shot, so that's directed energy for those of you that are scientists, over a mile long in an open environment in the United States. And you're gonna love this for those of us that are former students. We shot a laser a mile away in an open space, never been allowed to be done in the United States. And there was a statue of Bevo at the end of that shot. And we cut his horns off. So that was really cool for those of us that are Aggies. Yeah, that's worth an applause for those of us that are Aggies. But that's what Texas A&M Rellis is capable of allowing us to do. Here's just a collage of pictures of some of the things happening at Rellis in the applied research space at scale. We have our Texas A&M Transportation Institute. You saw the crash test. And by the way, I apologize if that video triggered any of you. I've been told recently by someone I need to give a trigger alert that video could spark some unfortunate memories for some people. So if it did that, I apologize sincerely. But Texas A&M Transportation Institute is out there innovating all kinds of transportation, from crash testing to autonomy and beyond. Our Center for Infrastructure Renewal, I was proud to start that center when I first left TxDOT in 2016. Over 15 laboratories, one-of-a-kind facilities in the United States. You saw some of those in the video. Our Bush Combat Development Complex, you saw some of our men and women in there. And the Texas A&M Semiconductor Institute, I'm really excited about that. We're breaking ground on that system and that institution this week. And then the Energy Proving Grounds, which I promise I'll talk more about. That's really what you're interested in. And then workforce development through our state agencies that are extension services, as well as our engineering experiment station, to train people in all kinds of capabilities, including emergency training. So that's what is happening at Texas A&M Rellis. So let me start the conversation about energy demand and why we are focusing so much on the establishment of the Energy Proving Ground at Texas A&M Rellis. You probably have seen this chart before, but if you haven't, it really tells the story. And Chairman Staples talked a little bit about this. The demand for energy in the state of Texas alone is predicted to increase by 80% over the next 9 years. Just think about that. The amount of electricity that we consume in the state of Texas is predicted to double in the next 9 years. And I think that number will only grow as we move forward in time. It's because of the population growth that is happening in this great state. It's because of the extreme weather events that are happening when our grid, like in Winter Storm Uri, is not able to keep up with demand. When this summer heat comes on and we have energy supply companies telling us they'd like us to change our thermostats to respond to those things. It's the evolution and growth of data center and artificial intelligence, and then the national security interest of reshoring manufacturing capabilities and what that means for the energy consumption, not only here, but across the country. So at Texas A&M, we are investing in several energy initiatives, including the Energy Proving Grounds at Texas A&M Rellis, to help de-risk investments that are happening in this space across multiple providers of energy, to make sure that we're providing a place and a space where the innovations can occur, collaboration can happen, and we're able to bring forward all the things that Chairman Wright and Chairman Staples talked about, to be able to position Texas to have the right technologies and the right infrastructure in place to make sure that we are meeting our needs here in the state of Texas to ensure our security and prosperity, that we are continuing to solidify our position as the energy capital of this country, and to help lead the emerging energy issues that are facing our state that many of our members in the legislature have helped respond to, including those, our representatives here today. We are applying our research efforts to focus on accelerating viable commercial systems for dispatchable energy. And I want to be clear about that. It's not to take anything away from wind and solar, but what we have to have is dispatchable energy, energy that sources that can be turned on and off, whether the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. And that is what the Energy Proving Grounds is really focused in on. You see some of the solutions there. It's across multiple energy solution sets, multiple technologies for nuclear, for fusion, and for a simple civil engineer like myself. When actually I thought after Chairman Staples talked, I was going to get up here and talk about Interstate 69 and asphalt consumption for the next 5 years at TxDOT. But I'll leave that for another day. But it's really to make sure that we have the right technologies for nuclear, for fusion, geothermal, hydrogen, and others to meet the needs that are shown on this slide, and to really make sure that the off-takers that are coming to the state and that we're building ourselves for data centers, for desalination. We talked about produced water and how that can be turned into something usable for agriculture purposes, as well as the opportunity to capture carbon for all the beneficial uses that it brings. Those are the kinds of things that the Energy Proving Ground is working to help innovate and deliver. At the Energy Proving Ground, again, we're talking about dispatchable electrical energy to meet the needs of our state. We're starting with demonstration reactors. That's where we've started, so small modular reactors that are demonstration reactors to prove the technologies through the Department of Energy and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to then be used to go to commercial power production. And our plan, our purpose is to help accelerate these innovation curves so that these technologies can go from demonstration to reality much, much faster, in partnership with the private sector and the federal government. And Chairman Wright talked a little bit about how our current political environment has allowed us to have the right leadership in place to help accelerate these technologies and cut through some of the bureaucratic red tape that has hindered those types of solutions from progressing as quickly in the past. So this is a concept that was shown to the Texas legislature about the Energy Proving Ground. And I really want to thank Chairman Harris for all the work that he did to help drive some of these things forward in his leadership with his colleagues from across the state. But at the end of the day, what the concept is, it's very, very simple. We want to be that place where demonstration can occur, not necessarily commercial production, where testing can happen, and where the technology can be proven and approved by the Department of Energy, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or other federal approving authorities for these technologies to advance. And again, hydrogen, nuclear, fusion, geothermal, and natural gas with carbon capture as well. We are currently advancing nuclear, geothermal, and soon to be fusion. And I'm really excited about the opportunities for us to be doing that. So just a little bit on the timeline, again, to show that things are moving very, very rapidly. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to be here with you today. In January of 2024, we launched the Nuclear Initiative. It was something that our Board of Regents was passionate about. There was a lot of support from the Texas legislature and others to be advancing this. We put out a request for information to see what kind of private sector parties would be interested in all of these things and would be interested in participating in research and technology development with Texas A&M. In February of 2025, we started to put in place some memorandums of understanding with 4 of the companies that we down selected through that process. House Bill 14 was passed by the Texas legislature under Chairman Harris back in the Texas legislative session, and then in May of 2025, the White House put out an executive order that helped really accelerate some of these things. In October, we signed our first agreement to officially start the development and construction of a small modular reactor at Texas A&M Rellis with Last Energy. And we had an open house back in January in the community to make sure that as we developed these technologies, the community knew about it and that we understood their reaction. And it was overwhelmingly positive because people know how important it is to have these energy solutions available to them. These are the 8 companies that we are really investing significant time and interest in, and that in turn are investing significantly at Texas A&M RELIS. Last Energy, I'll talk more about in a minute, is one of the companies selected from the Department of Energy's solicitation process in response to the executive order by President Trump. We had down selected 4 companies through our RFP process. Those are Terrestrial, Alloy, Natura, and Kairos. And we are working with Terrestrial and Natura to help advance their solutions at Texas A&M RELIS. And then the Exemer Energy you see at the bottom left, and Tokamak at the top right, those are fusion companies. So the others are small modular reactor fission. The other 2 are fusion solutions. And so we're excited about all of those. I mentioned the White House had put in place an executive order to help accelerate all of this. And it really is a big part of the catalyst that's driving these things forward. It created an opportunity for the Department of Energy to be the approving authority, and it cuts out a lot of the red tape that had been in place before, not minimizing or eliminating any concerns over safety and security, but to do it in a more business-friendly way. And the near-term outcomes are that by this July 4th, 3 sites will be at criticality. The reactors will be in place, the chain reaction will have been started, and they'll reach a steady state on that reaction, a sustainable nuclear reaction. One of those 3 is the Last Energy project that's happening here in Texas at Texas A&M RELIS. I'll move on just real quickly to talk a little bit about nuclear engineering at Texas A&M. So again, why would you see all this investment from the private sector, federal government, and other interests at Texas, and specifically Texas A&M RELIS? And it's because we have the largest nuclear engineering department of any university in the nation. We are ranked as one of the best in the country. We're going to get to a point where we are best when these modular reactor demonstration projects are in place. And only 2 departments in the entire United States of America have 2 nuclear reactors on campus. So for all of you that are former students, since the 1960s, whether you knew it or not, there were 2 nuclear reactors on the campus having a sustainable chain reaction going on. And I'll show one of those in just a minute. So any of you that have been in the Zachary Engineering Building, you've been within a few feet of a nuclear reactor, and you didn't even know it. That's the size and scale of these types of activities. We also at Texas A&M and in the state of Texas are focused in on the right things. The science around the data for nuclear activities and nuclear reactions, the fusion science as we move into the delivery of both fission and fusion supply chains, how the radiation will affect the health and biology of our communities, the fuel necessary to drive these reactions, and then the security and the proliferation of a nuclear fuel chain. So those are the things we're focused in on, and it's what industry needs to really be successful. I mentioned the 2 reactors at Texas A&M. This is the Nuclear Science Center. You can see the blue pool at the top right-hand side of this slide. It's a very beautiful, alluring pool. That is one of our reactors. It's called the Trigger reactor. If you fly in and out of Texas A&M at the Easterwood Airport, when you get off your plane at Easterwood, you're actually within a few hundred yards of a nuclear reactor. It's out at the airport. That's the one there. And we've been in this business for over 60 years. So these reactors both have been at Texas A&M in place with a sustained reaction for over 60 years. This is a big part of why all of this is important, why you should be interested as businessmen and women, and how it can be a part of your business in helping supply energy for the great state of Texas. House Bill 14, as I mentioned earlier, was authored by Chairman Harris, passed the Texas legislature, signed into law, and it is really creating the momentum and the inertia for a lot of these activities to occur. It established the Texas Advanced Nuclear Engineering Fund, which is the fund that is being led by that organization, the Texas Advanced Nuclear Energy Office, that is under the office of Governor Abbott. Jared Schaefer is leading that and doing a wonderful job. They have over $350 million to be able to make investments in helping some of these projects begin and get through the initial phases. I am confident that additional funding will be brought on as we see the success that's happening not only at Texas A&M Rellis, but at other locations around the state. And it's going to help us have that sustainable future that we all are wanting and needing. I've mentioned Last Energy a couple of times. They are the first small modular reactor that's being built at Texas A&M Rellis. I was on the phone most of my way here this morning from College Station talking to the company about their next steps. They are on path to be constructed, operational, and having reached criticality by July 4th of 2026, and we are incredibly excited about that. They are, again, our first private sector demonstration reactor, and they broke ground. This is how quickly this is happening. They broke ground, I think it was in December of 2025, and they will be reaching criticality by July of 2026. Phenomenally fast. The Department of Energy is working very well with them and with Texas A&M. And this is an example of the future that we will see as these reactors come on place. This particular one is a pressurized water reactor, will generate 5 megawatts of power. It's a very small footprint, fits inside the building you see at the top of that slide. I'm actually gonna make them have it look a little better than that. It's gonna be maroon and have some Aggie stuff on it. But in all seriousness, it'll look a little different than that building, but that small building fits on a 1-acre site, and that's what they needed to be able to do this small modular reactor. Their plan is to, once this is approved, to start deploying those around the state and to bundle them so they may have 10 reactors on a 10-acre site that's producing 50 megawatts of power, as an example. Some of the other reactors that we're talking to, Natura as an example, is bringing a solution that would be generating 300 megawatts terrestrial energy, between 300 and 400 megawatts. And our intent is that through these demonstration reactors at the Rellis campus alone, we would be generating around 1 gigawatt of power by 2035 from these demonstration reactors as they go through their processes for approval. Let me wrap up with 2 more things. So that's the energy proving ground. That's what we're doing to help drive forward the future of energy in the state of Texas. But there's a lot more going on. I mentioned that we are just breaking ground on the Texas A&M Semiconductor Institute, and this is also critical to our national security. A lot of the products that you produce in the oil and gas industry are necessary for the production of semiconductors. And it's important that we all understand that, because this is about securing the United States of America from foreign threats, because we have to be able to produce our own semiconductors to be able to have the protection for our future and to be economically competitive. Something that's really important. We're excited that it's happening at Rellis. It's across the street from the energy proving grounds, and it couldn't be a better combination of technologies and innovations. And then the last thing I'll share is we are also doubling the size of the cyclotron that we put in place at Texas A&M in the 1960s. So we've been in the cyclotron business since the 1960s. This is the critical radiation effects testing laboratory proving grounds for the world. It is oversubscribed. We have more people wanting to test their devices and their products in this radiation effects chamber, and we can't keep up with the demand. So we're doubling it. Again, it's just part of what we're doing to help address these important energy-related critical issues for our country and for our state. And I'll close by sharing the quote that Chairman Staples had shared earlier, because it's important to think about when we are focused in on the energy proving grounds, and that is this: energy is not the endeavor, or the end goal rather. Energy is not the end goal. It is the foundation for everything that comes next. And that's what we are doing for you and with you at Texas A&M Rellis, is to focus on what comes next through the innovation of these energy solutions. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. I'm afraid to take questions because you're going to ask me a nuclear engineering question, and I have no answer to that. But I am honored to be here, and I'll close the way we're required to as we sign our paychecks each month from Texas A&M. Thank you, and gig 'em.
Thank you, John. Excellent, very excellent. So today we've had 4 speakers. They've covered a lot of spectrums for us here. We've touched political, we've touched advocacy, we've touched technology, we've touched growth. That's what we try to do in these summits, to get something for everybody out there, and I hope you've gotten something today. My name's Jeff Harris. I am the chair of the Tyler Area Chamber of Commerce Energy Committee. I'm a veteran of the energy industry. I spent 33 years in it, with Shell mostly, and the last 4.5 years I was blessed to be located here in Tyler, Texas, working with Delek. I am not an Aggie, but I have retrained a lot over the years. Jokes aside, I want to reflect on 250 years of this experiment we call America. Texas Energy's played a huge role in our prosperity, without a doubt. I can't even imagine what the United States would be like without Texas Energy. 1970, peak oil was predicted, folks. That was the year I was born. I've since retired. Innovation and sweat have allowed us to continue to set record oil production in this country and in Texas 55, 56 years after peak oil. Don't ever count out American ingenuity. Today, you've heard some of these stats already. Texas accounts for over 40% of U.S. crude production. We have close to 30 Texas refineries, almost 1/4 of the refineries in the United States, 1/3 of the total refining capacity of the United States sits right here in our state boundaries. Nearly 1/3 of all U.S. natural gas is produced here in Texas. 1/3 of the natural gas that gets shipped via LNG ships outside to other countries comes from Texas. And almost 40 to 50% of our power, electric power in our grid, comes from natural gas produced right here in Texas. If you don't know what a gigawatt is, you need to learn what a gigawatt is. We need more of them. Tyler, Texas, we use about 1/4 of a gigawatt on a daily basis. This morning, Texas, as a state, was using about 50 gigawatts. When I checked the ERCOT website, I think we hit about 80 peak in the summertime. It's not just about oil and hydrocarbons. We make something like 12 gigawatts of wind power, which is about 1/4 to 1/3 of U.S. total wind production for electricity. This morning, we were making 9 gigawatts of solar power, and our capacity is about 20% of what the U.S. makes. And we're rapidly catching California, who's number 1. Nuclear power, we're between 3 and 4 gigawatts of nuclear power, but you just heard very, very recently about why we're going to lead the pack in getting back into the nuclear world. Texas oil and gas industry, you heard from Texoga, employs 500,000 Texans and maybe up to 2 million indirectly every year. These folks make wages that are 68% higher than average private industry in the United States, or in Texas. And we pay $27 billion of state and local taxes every year in this state. Most economists are going to tell you that plentiful, portable, and affordable energy correlates to prosperity. You heard that a couple different ways today. I think that's absolutely true. I can't imagine where our country would be without Texas's contribution to energy. And I'll say, looking forward, we have a massive role to play. ERCOT forecasts, you heard very recently, 80% increase in demand in 9 years. That's going to require a tremendous amount of investment. What can you do? You heard a few of those things today. I'm going to add 3. Recognize we need more power in the U.S. If you look around the world, you will see power prices going out of control in Europe and Asia. We are ahead of the curve here because of our prior investment, but it won't take long to fall behind. We've got to continue to invest. Recognize that and talk about that with your politicians. Second, support your local universities. You saw what RELIS is doing with technology to help us move forward. You also have local universities here at UT Tyler and TJC that are going to provide the people that make this work. Both those universities are key to staffing what is next in the growth phase. And I strongly encourage you to look at the TJC bond and vote yes May 2nd, because they're a big piece. And then finally, support electrical generation and grid improvements. These aren't going to be popular. People are going to talk down about them in the media. It's our job to actually be the balance to that. We can make all the natural gas power plants we can make, but if we don't have the grid to move them around, it won't do us a lick of good. So all those things are things you can do to help us move forward. On behalf of the Tyler Area Chamber of Commerce Energy Committee, I want to give a round of applause again for our 4 speakers. Mr. Jim Wright of the Texas Railroad Commission, Todd Staples, President of Texoga, Brent Haas, the COO of R. Lacey, and John Barton, the Executive Director of RELIS. And one more bit of recognition for our platinum and presenting sponsors, Encore, Mewburn Oil, the Genikov Group, and McGriff, and your presenting sponsor, Delic US. Thank you all. And lastly, a hearty thank you to all of you for supporting Texas Energy in 250 years of American prosperity. We're adjourned.